Hi, everyone. Pastor Don Smith here. Welcome to the Talk About It podcast, where we take relevant topics with a biblical point of view and we talk about it. You know you want to, and so do I. Let's talk about it. Welcome back, everyone. Pastor Don here. I am your host for Talk About It, but you knew that already. I am so glad that you guys are here. Thank you so much for tuning back in this week. It's been an incredible journey here in Season 8, where we have been talking about sexual purity. Man, have we touched on a topic. Thank you so much for all your support, for listening each and every week, for tuning back in, for your comments, just even those of you who are monthly supporters. Thank you so much for that. I am just so excited. What we want to do here on Talk About It is take a relevant topic, right, with a biblical perspective. We're going to have a conversation about it, and I'm not real sure if there's any more relevant topic in the world that we live in today that doesn't need more of a biblical reference than sex and sexual purity. And so here we are in Season 8. Today is Episode 7, so 6 episodes already. If you're a first-time listener, we're glad you're here, but what we want you to do is just push pause, go back, start on Episode 1 of Season 8, catch back up with us here in this season. We'll be here waiting for you. We're not going anywhere. We promise we'll be here. And that way you'll be fully vetted in the whole conversation. That's the goal, is to keep us moving in this particular topic. And so I'm thankful for, now this week I got some stats this week you might be interested to note. As of the recording of this podcast, so it's like March 2nd of 2026. Now, I don't know when you listen to this, if you listen to it every week or if you'll be listening to it years down the road. Doesn't matter to me. I'm so glad that you are here. But that's of the date of this recording. We have 26 different countries listening to the podcast today. Come on, somebody give God a great big old hand of praise. Wow. What? I never thought. When people told me years ago, Pastor Don, you should do a podcast, I said, man, I just don't have time for that. And the editing and all the things that go into it. And you know, the Lord just kind of kept whispering through people to me. And so we started, it's almost 2 years now. We're coming up on our 2-year anniversary as a podcast. We haven't missed a week. So one a week every Tuesday. It's been so great. 26 countries. 26 countries now. Listen, there's some of y'all listening in Australia. I wish y'all would send me a message. If you're, I know, I believe I know who you are. I believe we met at a pastor's conference in Africa. And if that's who you are, I would sure like to know, my brothers, the pastors that I met there. And boy, that would be interesting to reconnect in a way. But there's a good group listening in Milan. I mean, how does God do these things? I don't know. It's all because of you doing what you do by liking, sharing, subscribing to the podcast. I really appreciate that. But 26 countries. I'm just so blessed to think about that this morning. Well, let's dive back into this conversation today. Is that all right? Wherever you're at, if you're on the treadmill, if you're on your way to work, if you're on your way home from work, if you're getting ready for work, I don't know where you listen to the podcast at. I am just so grateful that you listen. But wherever you're listening to the podcast at today, let's get back into this idea of sexual purity, because what I want to do today, I'm going to break this down into 2 different parts, this week and next week as well. So this is going to be part 1 of guidelines. How about that? All right, so I want to just title this episode in our talk on sexual purity, guidelines. And this is going to be part 1, because today I want to address singles. Oh, man, if you are single, and you've been listening to this podcast, especially this topic, I bet you weren't aware that I was going to address singles. If you're not single, I need you to join me in praying for our single friends, especially over this area in their life. I think it's so important that we do that, okay? And so today, I want to address singles in this area. Now, next week, I want to talk about the guidelines for couples and parents. Okay, here we go. All right, so today we're going to have part one. We're going to address the guidelines for singles and sexual purity. Next week, we're going to have the guidelines for couples and parents in part two. It's going to be epic. Okay, I want to start with you single people. You single people, we love you. I'm so impressed by you, and I'm so thankful for who you are. But I want to have a very healthy conversation with you about the idea of sex. Okay, because man, I can't imagine the struggle, the wrestling, the questions, the what ifs, the how abouts, and all that good stuff. Well, 1 Corinthians chapter 15, Paul writes to the Corinthians, verse 33, and I'm going to read this out of the New Living Translation. He says, "Don't be fooled by those who say such things, for bad company corrupts good character." Okay, all right. That's actually in the Bible. How about that? There's a lot of times people say, oh, it's in the Bible, and it's not in there. But bad company corrupts good behavior. That's in the Bible. It's right there in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 33. Now, why should I address the idea of singles, okay, on this particular topic? Because whether you know it or not, if you're single or not single, you might not know this, okay? Doesn't matter. There is a large portion of our population who are single. There's a large portion. Young people that are single. There are adults who have never married. I've got a very, very good friend of mine. His name is Ryan Yesh. Shout out Ryan Yesh. Everybody who knows us knows Ryan very personally, right? Like he's never been married his whole life. He is a single man and I think Ryan's 40. I'm not sure. I'll have to ask him how old he is. Never been married. He's a single man. And there are those who are single. Maybe you're listening to this podcast and you're single because you're a widow, okay, or a widower. Or maybe you're single because you have experienced the tragedy of divorce, okay? And the reason that I think that it's very important to talk about this subject with single people is because each group, whether you're a young person, whether you're an adult who's never married, whether you're a single person who's experienced divorce, whether you're a single person whom your spouse has died, listen, each of these groups is very unique on their own merits, and they all have probably unique views on the idea of purity based on the culture they live in, based on their experience in life, and everybody say and based on their biblical understanding of the topic. Let me just start with young people right now for a moment, okay? Because I know that this will be great. And if you're a parent listening to this, you have your young people listen to this episode, okay? So young people, right? Here's the dynamic of young people in the world that we live in. They have an unprecedented combination of leisure time, money, social media, and transportation. I'm going to say it again. I need you to hear me what I'm saying here. Young people in the world that we live in right now, they have an unprecedented combination of leisure time, money, social media, and transportation. And if you add all of that to the lack of parental involvement and the gap between puberty and marriage, if you mix in with that, the media's saturation with sex and its portrayal of premarital sex as normal, the results are overwhelming temptation to single people, especially young people, but to young people and old people alike. Clearly, if they are to live righteously, single Christians must use wise strategies. Now, the Bible warns against man-made rules involving harsh treatment of the body, but it also warns us that man-made rules can make us treat the body harsh, but lack value in restraining our bodies in sensual indulgences. It can do that. So guidelines are valuable if only they are biblical and wise. Okay. Now, this is where PD comes in, because this is where I'm at. I want to take up a topic with a biblical perspective. And so I'm going to say to you that I'm not against guidelines, but I'm saying to you that guidelines are only valuable if they are biblical and wise. You see, In the world that I live in, I've been called both a legalist and a sloppy grace guy, all at the same time. You can't be both, okay? But here, in the world that I live in as a pastor, okay, especially today's world in the idea of the sloppy grace culture that we live in, okay, some think guidelines are inherently legalistic. The book of Proverbs, though, it calls us to live wisely, exercising God-honoring common sense. And we are told to be like soldiers. We're told to be like athletes. We're told to be like farmers. And the scripture elaborates on those three categories so much when it comes to discipline, when it comes to fortitude, when it comes to training. And yet we would call those things in the modern day religious world as legalistic. But each area, a soldier, an athlete, or a farmer, each one of those categories is a discipline to a proven standard. And so I believe, like what Paul is writing to the Galatians in chapter 5, verse 22, he calls us to exercise self-control and the fruit of the Spirit. Okay, so I'm going to address singles today in this context. All right? Because I know in the world that we live in, singles are like, okay, well, we got to date, we got to meet people. And so how far is too far? How far is not too far as how we should go with physical touch and physical attraction and all those things? So here's the big question. So, Pastor Don, for singles, how far should singles go? Well, let me preference that question by making this statement. God made sex, and God made our sexual drives. And when those drives are stimulated, they move towards climax. It's a simple fact of biology, okay? So guess what caressing and heavy petting each other in sexually stimulating ways is leading to, okay? So foreplay, listen, y'all weren't ready for this today, but you need to listen. Foreplay is designed by God to culminate in sexual intercourse. So since intercourse is forbidden outside of marriage, so is foreplay. Hello, somebody. Since sexual intercourse before marriage is wrong, it is also wrong to engage in activity that propels your mind and your body towards sexual intercourse. That means the lines must be drawn before either person becomes sexually stimulated. So fondling and anything else that results in a turn on is forbidden. Oh, y'all probably never heard a preacher talk this way, but we should hear more preachers talk this way. See, once you let your body cross the line, it will neither know nor care about your Christian convictions. Hello, somebody. I'm just having a conversation, and I'm just trying to be honest with you. I'm trying to be a realist as well as a born-again believer. Okay, once you let your body cross the line, it's neither going to know nor care about your Christian convictions. And you know what? Men tend to get there faster than women, don't they? And so a woman often thinks that an extended kiss and a hug is fine, but a guy is stimulated and he wants to push for more because of that. You need to make sure as a man and as a woman that you draw the line far enough back that neither of you cross it. Now remember, we're talking to singles here. If one of you is stimulated by physical touch, then both of you need to back off. If you don't choose, right, to stay in the boat, okay, you're going to drown. Hello, somebody. Hello, somebody. Or if both of you choose to stay in a boat that's headed towards a waterfall, you're going to go over. If you continue to engage in sexual foreplay, don't come to me crying when you fall, in parentheses, into sexual intercourse. I don't believe you do that. I don't believe you fall into sexual, and I don't believe you like, oops, I made a mistake. No, you got to on purposely get naked. Okay? You don't go, oops. You don't, people are like, oh, I just fell into sin. I fell into sexual sin with this person that I wasn't married to. Y'all need to stop tripping. Y'all tripping all over stuff. Hello, somebody. You don't fall into sexual intercourse, okay? It's not possible. It will be a natural, predictable result of the choices that you have made. And so if you want a different outcome, single people, you have to make different choices. And that begins where Paul spoke to us at the beginning of this podcast. Choose your friends wisely. 1 Corinthians 15:33, bad company corrupts good character. See, it's our nature to be influenced by our surroundings. Now, godly atmosphere with godly people influences us towards godly living. Ungodly atmosphere with ungodly people influence us towards ungodly living. Hello, somebody. Can I just, right? Proverbs chapter 13, verse 20. Can I just read it to us? Walk with the wise and become wise. Associate with fools and get into trouble. The Bible, you should read this book sometime. Proverbs 13:20. Walk with the wise, you become wise. Walk with a fool and you're going to get in trouble. We will become like the people we spend time with. Hello, somebody. God speaks of lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God in 2 Timothy. And he warns us, have nothing to do with them. Hello, somebody. Let me just say this to you, single people. Okay, I'm going to say this. It's my podcast, and I hope you won't turn me off or unsubscribe because of this. I hope you'll just chew on it a little bit, even if you disagree with me. But single people, dating is an option, not a necessity. Oh, I said it. Dating is an option, not a necessity. Much sexual temptation is created by our social custom of coupling and isolating young people. You see, in the Bible, young people could only spend time together when adults were present. That's called courting. There's a difference. I think dating is actually divorce practice, and I wish young people would not be allowed to do it. Courting is fine. They can spend time together when adults are present. But this dating one person 1 week, dating one person the next week, dating this person for this month and dating that person for the next month, dating this person for 6 months, and then 6 months I'm dating another person. By the time young people get married, they have had so much divorce practice that divorce is a natural aspect of their relationship. Hello, somebody. But courting's different. Young people can enjoy time together without putting themselves in the place of temptation. And so if you choose to date, which I don't recommend, here are some guidelines. Christians date only Christians. That's 2 Corinthians chapter 6. Here's some guidelines. Christ is with you all evening, wherever you go and whatever you do. Here's some guidelines. If you choose to date as a Christian, your date is your brother or sister in Christ, not your lover. 1 Timothy chapter 5. Oh my. Pastor Don's helping us today. If you date as a Christian, especially young people, go out in groups, not alone. You can't be alone with each other. That's just got to be a rule that you set out in the beginning, because you cannot put confidence in the flesh. You just can't do it. You're going to fail every time. Okay? Go out in groups, not alone. Okay? If you date as a Christian, which I don't recommend, focus on talk, not on touch. Conversation, not contact. Oh, hello, somebody. I said it. I hope that you're being blessed right now. I know there's some parents in the room that are like, oh, you tell them, Pastor Don. Tell them, Pastor Don. But I need you to tell them. I need you to instruct them. If you date as a Christian, avoid fast-moving relationships or instant intimacy. No. That's a no. It is bad, bad, bad. If you date as a Christian, plan the entire time together in advance. No gaps. No gaps. Okay? You got to plan the whole thing. Avoid setups. Never be alone on the couch, in the car, late at night, in a house, or in a bedroom. Never. Everybody say never. Never be alone on a couch, in a car, late at night, in a house, or in a bedroom. Hello, somebody. If you date, be accountable to someone about your purity. If you date, you need to understand that God is actually watching. God is paying attention. If you're dating, God's paying attention. He's seeing what's going on. Because see, if God is bringing you together as a couple, He's very interested in what He's joining. So you got to pay attention to this thing. I believe it's Jeremiah 16. I'm just kind of flipping through my Bible here to try and make sure I'm correct. Jeremiah 16, somewhere, hang on with me here. I want to think it's 17. Jeremiah chapter 16, verse 17. Watch this. I'm watching them closely, and I see every sin. They cannot hope to hide from me. Well, that's the word of the Lord. If you date, write out your standards and enforce them on yourself. Never depend on someone else. Never depend on someone else's standards. Write out your standards and enforce them on yourself. Never depend on someone else to bring standards to the table in a dating relationship. I'm talking to singles today. If you date, don't do anything with your date that you wouldn't want someone else doing with your future spouse. Oh, hello. Come on, somebody. I'm making you think today, and that's the whole point of a conversation. It should make us think. If you date, let me help you. I want you to beware of moral wear down of long dating relationships and long engagements. Be aware of the moral wear down of long dating relationships and long engagements. When a couple comes to me and they say, oh, Pastor Don, we've decided we're getting married. We got engaged. Great. When is the wedding? Oh, we're going to get married in 2 years. Negative. You know how long the wedding or the engagement should last? The engagement should last long enough to plan the wedding. You know why? Because moral wear down is going to happen to you as a couple. And in your mind, you're going to be walking in justification. Oh, we're getting married anyway. Hello, somebody. I'm just talking to you. So a young couple comes to me. I don't even start premarital counseling until 10 weeks before the wedding is scheduled to happen. You know why? Because I'm not getting caught in this trap of 2 years of engagement. That is way too much time for the flesh to get in the way. The engagement should last as long as it takes to plan the wedding, and it really only takes a couple of months to plan a wedding. Maybe, see, now I know I'm going to get it. Send me a message. I hope you do. I love hearing from you. That's being legalistic. Okay. Let's test my theory and your theory and see what happens. 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 8. So I say to those who aren't married and to widows, it's better to stay unmarried, just as I am. But if they cannot control themselves, they should go ahead and marry. It's better to marry than to burn with lust. So Paul, I was going to say agrees with me, but I'm not going to do that. I agree with Paul. Hello, somebody. I agree with Paul. Single people, Pastor Don's trying to take care of you. I'm trying my best to bless you with a conversation about something that I know is very real in your life, okay? That I know is very tangible in your life. And that's the idea, okay, of sexual temptation. I don't doubt that you want to walk in purity. I know you do, okay? But I also know how strong the flesh is. And I know there's got to be sometime, some way, okay, where we decide that there's got to be some guidelines about how we're going to walk in sexual purity before we ever get in a situation, okay, that brings us to temptation. Listen, you got to pre-decide what you want your destination to be, and therefore you won't go down any roads that don't lead you to that destination. The problem with young people is They don't have a destination in mind, okay? And they get caught up in the moment, and all of a sudden they find themselves in a place that they never intended to be, and now they don't know what to do with the actions that they've taken. And so that's why this conversation is so very important when it comes to this topic. So singles, I love you. I want the best for you. If God's called you to be married, I want you to be married to the person of your dreams. And I want it to be a beautiful, beautiful thing. Okay? But listen, there's a time in your life when you're not married. And so whether you're a young person that's single, whether you're a person that's gone through divorce, whether you're a person that's been widowed or you're a widower, okay, the sexual temptation is the same, but the standards of sexual purity haven't changed according to the biblical context. And that's where we need to live in this time. So I hope this blesses you today. I hope that, man, this is giving you a reason to just think about some things, raise some standards in this area. And maybe you just need to listen to it again. Chew the meat, spit out the bones. I promise you it's not too bony. Hello, somebody. But I am blessed by this conversation because I got a lot of single friends and I appreciate their standards in this area. Listen, it's been a great day on the podcast. Thank you for tuning in. I love you. I'm going to see you next week, and we're going to give some guidelines for couples and for parents. You're not going to want to miss that. But I need you to know, okay, I love you. But as much as I love you, Jesus loves you more. I'll see you next week.